Hey guys, it's Kanmalva here, and this is a quick video that I wanted to record for you guys because I got a lot of requests in the past about how to create intros and how I process my delays and reverbs in my projects. So I thought why not make a quick video for you guys and show you how I usually go about it. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Alright, so here I've got my project loaded up. This is basically a project that I released last month. It's called Majna. No, it's called Aja Sajna, and I released this last month as a template. So if you want, you can download it for free. The link is going to be in the description. So yeah, here I've got this vocal in this project, and it had some delay. So I wanted to show you how it sounds first. So let's solo it, and I'm gonna play it. Alright. So it's like an ethnic vocal that I have over here, and you can hear that there's some reverb in the on top of the dry vocal. So if you come here into the mixer, you would see there's a reverb 2 on the mixer slot. So yeah, if you see here, I've got this reverb 2 and I have processed it like, you would usually do, increase the wet level a little, have some dampening, decay, and some high cut. It's just a basic, preset which I selected from this. And this is fine, this is like usually how anyone would process their reverbs. But I have a better way to go about this, and I just wanted to show that. So let's just mute it for now. And this involves the usage of patcher. So the technique that I'm going to be showing in this video is basically going to use parallel processing. Now, if you've not heard of parallel processing, it's nothing. It's just processing your signals like reverb or delay, stuff like that parallelly to your original sounds. So basically, if you see here, whenever we put our plugins here into the mixer slots, it is going serially one after the other. But when you do parallel processing, your original signal goes through, but your effect signal goes parallel to the original signal. So to show you how that works, here I've got a patcher. Now I have disabled this reverb, so let's just remove it to avoid some confusion. Alright, so right now if I play it, you won't hear anything because there's no signal going from FL Studio to FL Studio. So if I play it, there's no audio. But the moment I connect it, you would start hearing the vocal again. Right. So this is a dry signal without any reverb. So to add reverb, we'd go right click here, add plugin, go into effects and open plugin picker. Here I would select reverb 2 and just drag it and drop it here. Now I could drop it here in the center, so it would put it right in between. But for now, let's just put it here. So it's disconnected, it's not connected. So if I play it, it's still not, there's no reverb. So to engage that, I would take the signal and parallelly make it go through the reverb. And you would notice that it sounds like the volume has increased. And that's because if you go into reverb 2, you would see the dry level is set to 100. Which means that the dry level is getting registered once from this and again through this. So we need to turn this down to 0 so that we only have the wet signal of the reverb from this. And the dry signal is this. To make it a little more obvious, I'm going to mute this signal here, the reverb signal, so you can hear the original. And now I'm going to do the opposite, so you can hear the reverb. So yeah, so right now we have the reverb only coming through this signal path, right? And what this allows me to do is to manipulate the reverb parallelly to the original signal. So the original signal does not get affected by any plugin that I add to this signal flow path. So I can add like a EQ, for example, and control the EQ of the reverb individually, and it does not affect the original signal. So let me show how that sounds. And to make it a little more obvious, I'm going to increase the wet level and the decay and all these settings so that you can hear it a little more. So I'm going to just change the EQ here, and you'll notice that it only affects the reverb. This actually allows us to do a lot more than what we could have done if we just added a reverb 2 into the signal flow directly into the mixer slot here. And that's because the plugins that you usually get for reverb have few knobs here, and they have few controls like high cut, low cut, and these settings. But what if you wanted to do more than those? What if you wanted to add a distortion or something like that? Now I know most plugins don't have those kind of settings inbuilt to it. So what we would do is we could add any plugin. So I could just go ahead and maybe add a stereo enhancer tool here, and just move this apart here to make a little more stereo effect for just the reverb signal. This is great, but I'm going to show you one more thing, and that's going to help you take this sound to the next level. So right now, if I play this, you would hear some kind of interference that's happening between the reverb and the original signal. It almost sounds like the original vocal is drowned in reverb, and I'm not able to hear the original signal as clearly as I would if the reverb volume sort of ducked down a little when the singer is singing and then came back. So the way we usually go about is to use sidechaining. And for sidechaining, FL Studio has this plugin called as the limiter, which I can bring to the reverb chain. And what it's going to do is it's going to take the signal from the dry vocal and bring down the volume level of the reverb. So let me just show you how that works. So we need to set that up. And to set it up, you have to right click, go into inputs, audio, and add one. And I'm going to take the original dry vocal and put it through this limiter. So now there are two inputs which are going to the limiter. One is the reverb and one is this virtual input that I added. Now I'm going to open limiter and go into this compressor section. And here under sidechain, we right click and select input 1, which is basically this input right here. So to engage the sidechaining, we would have to decrease the threshold value and increase the ratio a little. And then when I hit play, you would notice that the volume of the reverb goes down, whenever the singer is singing the vocal. And you can see that by looking at these white lines over here. But to make it more obvious, I'm going to reduce the threshold a little more and increase the ratio. And let's also increase the time variables. Time variables is basically going to control how the curve brings down the volume for how long. So attack is basically going to control the beginning of the curve, how quickly the compressor reacts to it. And then release and sustain is basically how quickly the compressor stops sidechaining. So I can demonstrate it by increasing the release and sustain value and trying that again. So you can see how I stopped playing here. I paused it with my keyboard and it slowly went up. Now notice the difference when I decrease the release and sustain value and do the same. You can see how it has quickly, went back to the original volume level. And this allows you for a lot more control over how the reverb interacts with the original signal, which I think is really cool. So let's select something like this, around 106 milliseconds for release, and let's say around 80. You can select whatever you want. This is just some random values which I selected. Not only that, you can also change the curve settings here. The curve is basically the shape of the release and attack. So if I have a higher number of curve, it would be more exponential. So if I increase the release and sustain again, you can see the curve being more exponential. And if I have a curve which is at a lower value, you'd see it's a little different. You can see it's more exponential and smoother in the 8th one as compared to the first one, and the in between values just sort of work in between these two shapes. So yeah, that's that. I would just keep it at the first curve itself because I like how it works here. So I'm just gonna close this, and to wrap this all up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a volume control, so that I can control the amount of reverb that I have in the end. Usually you have these knobs which let you control the signal level, but what if I had to automate it, in the track? So for that, usually I use a plugin called as Love Filter, which has this beautiful preset called as volume and panning. Just go here, and then this Y knob becomes the volume level. So elegant. This is 0% volume, this is 100% volume. So to demonstrate, if I play the vocal and then control the knob, you can see that the volume level of the reverb is getting controlled. Which, by the way, also takes this into consideration, the sidechaining which I did in the past. So it's going to sidechain as well as let you control the volume level. You can automate it directly by right clicking here and create automation shape. But what I usually do is by activating, I go into the surface tab here inside Patcher, right click and add a knob. Now FL has a lot of these presets which you can choose. I created my own here, call it turquoise. I renamed it and I don't even know how it's said. Why is it called turquoise, by the way, when it's white? Oh, I see. Anyway, so we got this knob here in the surface, and what I'm going to do is basically go into the map again, and we have this surface box here which has this knob 1 node. We just have to connect that node to this one, which is the Y modulation knob basically. So if I go back in surface and control it, you can see that it's controlling this knob, right? So I can activate it and automate it. The reason why I did this is so that I can control multiple things with this knob. So if I had a panning control here, which I also want to automate, for example, if I want to pan it to the left while controlling the volume, I could do that by activating this and then linking that to this. So now you can see that not only does that control the volume level, but also controls the panning here. You see? 2 birds, 1 stone. So yeah, but don't do this. This is stupid. Remove this control, deactivate. So yeah, this is like a basic example of what you can do with Patcher, and you can do this with any effect. Doesn't have to be just reverb. You can do this with delay as well. Now I do have a preset which I made in the past. It's called delay and reverb 1, and if you come here in the map, basically I've got 2 units here. One is the delay 3 unit, which is going through a EQ, limiter, and then volume control with the Love filter, like I explained. And then we have this reverb, which is also coming parallelly to the delay, and it's also getting EQ'd. And we have limiter for sidechain, and this is a LUF filter again for volume control. And the volume levels of the LUF filter are being controlled with these two knobs here in the surface. So the way I like to use it is basically I would reduce the volume of both of them initially and play it, so I just get the dry signal of the vocal, and then slowly dial it in. Which I like a lot. So you can download this from the description. I'll just put it in the description for you guys to download as well and experiment with it, because it all comes down to what you want to do with the tools. The tools are just there for you to experiment with. And I just wanted to show you this because you don't have to purchase plugins which come with all these controls, with side chaining and EQing all inbuilt, baked into the plugin. So yeah, that's that. There's actually a much better way you can do things with reverb and delay, and it involves side chaining specific to frequencies. So I think that's like a more advanced topic, so maybe I'll create a tutorial in the future on that. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.